Good day. It's September 7th, 2022. Welcome to Corey Morgan, Untied, literally, figuratively. Some people say unhinged, some unstable, or whatever. I'm here again. I got to admit, I missed you guys. I missed doing this. So this will be much like the past show, though it is going to be weekly. It is just an hour. It's still live. It's still me. I'm going to have one guest today rather than two, so we should get some. Not that our past guests were of low quality, but I could really make sure we get some good hard hitters here on the show to have some good discussions, a little more easier timeline to work with, lots of time to rant, and of course, lots of time for the comments. Hey there, Lisa, Paradoxy, good to see you guys back, and Ashley, all of you. It's been a bit. So this, where I like to remind everybody to use that comment scroll. Let's make this interactive. That's the benefits of being live, is being able to chatter with each other and share ideas, argue with each other, argue with me, argue with my guests. Again, keep it civil. We're untied, but we're not impolite, right? We can still argue and debate and have discourse without being too nasty. And oh yeah, all those familiar names, Pat, Saniko, Scott, Brenda, Cliff. Good to see you all. Yeah, I couldn't stay away. There's just too much to cover. So it's going to be once a week. We're going to have a good time. And yeah, Mike Demore expressing shock that I'm still here. Yes, Mike, the standard just can't get rid of me that easily. So it's going to be pretty similar. I'm not going to go through the daily observances because it is a weekly show, so I won't fill the time with that. It's just a bit of my babbling. And I do have a new teleprompter. So, I write these things every time, but for a while it was down. If those who are past regular viewers remember, I was kind of always looking at the laptop. So let's get on to what I'm going to rant about for kicking off this show. And it's just more some broader thoughts on things. And it goes with the title of the show, which was, there's no such thing as a zero risk world. I mean, every day, every person on the planet begins doing a risk-benefit analysis for themselves with every action and choice they make during the waking hours, even if we do it unconsciously. I mean, we know that a number of people are killed or injured every year just by slipping in the shower, but we still choose to shower anyways, thankfully. We eat breakfast without fear, even though we know that choking is the fourth leading cause of unintentional injury and death in North America. We drive to work daily despite automobile accidents killing thousands. We take part in sports like skiing and mountain biking, despite being people killed every year doing those things. And we can eliminate the risk of death from each one of those actions to nearly zero. We could all stop showering. We could put all our food into a blender before we eat it. We could participate in only yoga and other risk-free methods of exercise, and we could walk everywhere we go while avoiding roadways. So why haven't we taken action to reduce the death risk down to zero through these activities? Well, it's because it's ridiculous, and my teleprompter ran out of my text on that, so I'm going to have to get on my computer and find out where it was. Okay, so either way, we accept there's a degree of avoidable risk, and we're willing to take with everything we do. COVID zero adherence, though, and that's who I want to get onto. That's these people who seem to think we could create this zero risk world. And I mean, they're cult-like in their fervor, and they should be dismissed as the extremists they are. Yet legacy media and politicians continue to take these zealots seriously. We can't pretend the numbers aren't in anymore. COVID-19 clearly doesn't present a threat to the health of society at large, warranting further lockdowns and mandates. If you're a healthy person under 70 years of age, COVID-19 is way down the list of things that might kill you in the course of a year. So if you're under 18, you have a better chance of dying from a lightning strike than from COVID-19. Yet despite this, we're barraged with experts insisting we have to apply masks to children and infringe on the rights of citizens who choose not to get vaccinated. They just won't quit. Now, Justin Trudeau, we probably saw that video clip recently, is already using threatening language as fall approaches. In a recent interview, he implied if we don't get 80 to 90% of the population boosted, we might see a return to restrictions. Yeah, he wants to go back. Says my mic's been muted. So okay, it's all good. Oh, wait, there's multiple mics. So we're debugging a few things as we're back, and it's good to see you all back. The government now is on the hook for billions in vaccine purchases. So that does explain some of the fervor in trying to compel Canadians to undergo constant vaccinations, but it doesn't justify it. Now, the National Advisory Committee on Immunization in Canada is suggesting Canadians are going to have to get boosters every 90 days. I guess we could presume we'd need these boosters for life, as we know the vaccination doesn't prevent transmission. That was an outrageous suggestion, yet we heard very little about it. The committee should have been condemned and called out for suggesting such an idiotic policy, yet we've heard next to nothing about it. The world has endured 2.5 years of misery, and not so much due to COVID-19, but due to the efforts of governments to control the outbreak. Our economies are in shambles and our societies are divided. We're finally starting to approach fiscal and social recovery. Yet we have people like Trudeau and legacy media outlets trying to convince us that we have to remain in fear and that our rights might be violated again in a futile battle against a virus that just isn't that damn dangerous. There are a few statements more vacuous and dangerous than those that begin with, if it saves just one life. The COVID zero cult won't stop on their own. They're fanatics. So until and unless Canadians start pushing back harder, we're going to be returning to government-restricted life by the end of the year in this pursuit of an impossible zero-risk goal. So get ready, guys. The pandemic's not over in the sense of the infections, and it's not over in the sense that we've got to fight back. All right, that's my rant, and yes, we will continue with things. Thanks for bearing with me for that return. Yes, a couple weeks off, I'm going to be a little rusty, but I still got lots of rant and energy and things within me. Lisa, he's saying, good luck getting 80% vaccine, Trudeau. Yeah, absolutely. And that's the boosting he's talking about even. I mean, we don't even have that with the people with the first 2 yet. So come on, it's absurd. I don't know if I mentioned, so my first guest, you probably saw it in the show description. I got Jeromy Farkas coming in. For those who might be out of the province or, in other areas, Jeremy's been very involved in politics over the year. He's a young man. He was a city councillor in Calgary for one term, and he really shook them up. He was the one who really shook up the lefties on council, drove them bananas. Nenshi would just go crazy on him. And then Jeromy ran for mayor and came in second to Jody Gondek. So fair enough, but he needed a new task. And what Jeromy did, he actually, for Big Brothers and Sisters, some of you might have seen it online, did a hike up the Pacific Coast Trail. It starts in Mexico all the way up to the Canadian border, all in these isolated desert and high mountain areas and everything. He just finished it. He started it last spring, and he just finished it about a week ago, got back to Canada. So we're going to have him in the studio, and we're going to talk about that hike, some of the pictures, things he saw, things he did there, and it'll be a really good conversation. So let's go into some new stuff before we're actually, I'm going to cover my sponsor. That's what I want to do, because these are the guys that pay the bills. This is the reason I'm back once a week even. They still have to pay to keep these things rolling, and that's the Canadian Shooting Sports Association. These guys are out there standing up for your rights as a firearm owner, whether you're a sports shooter, whether targets, hunting, collecting, it doesn't matter. If you enjoy firearms, or again, if you appreciate the rights of others to enjoy firearms, even if you don't, this is the association you'd be a part of. They have all sorts of resources for safe firearm use, events, things that are coming up, like any association would. And they also, of course, lobby on your behalf, which is very important. I mean, we're going to lose those rights, as we were talking about with this early thing, the zero risk cult, things like that. They will step on our ability to do things if we don't push back. So the Canadian Shooting Sports Association is doing that on your behalf. You own a firearm, take out a membership with these guys. Got to look them up. Canadian Shooting Sports Association. Their website is CSSA-CILA.org. Good to see you too, DL Timbers, by the way. And yes, lots of other people saying they haven't complied yet and do not comply. And and some of us who did comply at first. Hey, I got my first 2 shots, but I've had it with it. I'm done. I see the numbers. I mean, my risk is low. I'm not going to go out and get it again. The bottom line is it has to be a choice. That's where we keep losing the narrative. People who don't believe in choice. They don't believe in trusting people to make up their own mind on what they can do with themselves and with not. That's the difference between an authoritarian and a totalitarian. And we really need to push back on these people. I want to get on some new stuff. Like, this has been hot. We're going to talk about that in the pipeline a little later today. And that is, the UCP race is sure getting heated up. And I'm trying to get Danielle on. I want to get her on to talk again. She's been on the show before. Because, it's clear she's the front runner. And not just of a bias of wanting her to be your polls or anything, just with the fact that every other candidate has their guns pointed at her and her policies and are in full attack mode with her. So, there's no doubt. They're always doing internal polling. They're always watching these things. That's part of a campaign. That's the way it works. But that's fine. That's the way it goes. But what won't stop is Jason Kenney has come right out of the gates in full campaign mode. He can't open his mouth without jumping into this race. It was bad enough that once he was basically pushed aside by the membership of his own party, that he said, well, even with 51%, I'm going to hang in there as a lame duck premier for the next 5 months while we pick a new one or whatever it's going to be. But at least you would presume that he would, show the dignity, the class, like any interim leader should, any placeholder leader, of just staying out of it. And I've seen some of the debates of people saying, but he's right with this, he's right with that. The question isn't whether or not Kenney is right. It's whether or not he should be speaking to it. People say he has a right to a point of view. Absolutely. But when he wants to sit on the chair of being the interim leader, when he's still the premier, he should keep those views to himself. Likewise with the lieutenant governor. What a scene. Man, it doesn't matter whether you agree with them. They've got some roles that they're sitting in right now that they should stay the hell out of. And with the lieutenant governor, that was even bigger. I mean, this is a role that it's appointed by the Queen on this recommendation of the Prime Minister. This person should not be talking about policy. They're a rubber stamp. They're a ribbon cutter. Let's get real. I know they've got a lot of theoretical power, and they certainly signify a lot of things in the country and in the provinces, but they should not be getting into policy. Oh, here's some of the beauty with discussion. Dean's Russ mostly saying, yikes, you're standing behind Daniel Smith. Wow, I just lost all respect for the Western Standard. Well, that's only fair. I got no respect for you, Russ. Look, I put my view out there, guys. It's an opinion show, and I don't speak for the whole Western Standard, and I didn't say I was standing behind Daniel Smith. I said that our asshole premier, Jason Kenney, has got to stop dipping into a leadership to replace him. If he was representing what the members wanted and what Albertans wanted, he'd still be premier. We wouldn't be in the middle of a leadership race, would we? I'm not endorsing any particular candidate. I'm just saying there's appropriate people who should be speaking to these issues at times and when they should and when they shouldn't. You see, that's where some of the discussion goes, with people saying, well, he was right when he said this or that. Maybe he was, maybe he wasn't, but it's not his place. He should be just holding the spot for the next month and moving along to retirement with whatever he's going to do. All right, that's enough ranting for now. I'll get back to some ranting when I'm done with my guest. I see Jeromy Farkas is in studio with me today. Hey, welcome back to Canada.
Well, thanks so much for having me. And I know we did a couple of chats remotely from the trail, and just really appreciate the coverage and the love that the Western Standard's been giving Big Brothers and Big Sisters.
Well, it's a good cause. I mean, you know, and if you're doing some run for something stupid, I probably wouldn't talk, you know, fair about it. But no, it's a good cause, and it was a good creative way to do it. I mean, some people, some of that discussion, they're saying, you know, oh, why can't people just donate? Why they always got to do a run? Well, because that's the way it works. You bring attention to something, you make it an event, and it draws people's eyes. So we'll start with, I mean, so I'll get you to explain the whole thing in a sense, but I mean, it's been a great success. What number is the fundraising at so far? And I know there's still room to help out with this.
Yeah, so by day one on the trail, we hit the $50,000 goal, and then by halfway, we hit 100,000. And then we've set this new goal of 125,000, which we're going to be fundraising until September 20th, when we are hosting sort of like a welcome home party, kind of movies from the trail kind of night at Canyon Meadows Theater.
Yeah.
So there's tickets that people can buy for that. But sort of rewinding a bit, the last 5.5 months have just been insane. I've ran something like 5,000 kilometers all the way from Mexico to Canada. And of course, as you said, you have to have a hook, right? There's a lot of good charities out there, but they're not all made the same. And myself, as a fiscal conservative, I spent a lot of time looking at their books and reviewing just where that money is going. And I was just really, really proud to see how their volunteer organization making a difference in the lives of kids, and that money that's being raised is actually going out the door to help kids and not on bloated administration, stuff like that.
Yeah, and Big Brothers and Big Sisters, I mean, it's more like a mentoring organization for kids who might not have a household where they're getting enough time with, I guess you could say, guiding figures and so on, and they help with that sort of relationship for kids. I mean, it's very beneficial for everybody in the long run. I mean, there's a lot of good causes, but it is a good one. So start describing your run there. I mean, you documented it, and for people who aren't following, you know, Jeromy has really documented it excellently on Facebook. You know, you can have a look at it, and you've been posting your almost a diary and pictures and thoughts. And there's some of the pictures coming up on the screen you took, you know, with the Canadian flag and up on mountaintops. So, I mean, you started on the Mexican-American border, as far south as we're going to get. So I guess you're beginning in quite a desert environment.
Yeah, it's pretty much all the above. My friends dropped me off at the Mexican border, and from there it was sandstorms. Even though it was the desert, it was very cold at night when I started in March. So it was still sometimes -20, -30 degrees Celsius. And the hottest day I had was 118 degrees Fahrenheit, which I had to look it up. It translates to like 47 degrees Celsius, which I cannot believe some of the conditions. And again, we had all the above. So we had blizzards, we had snowstorms, raging rivers, creek crossings. And, you know, it was a great experience for me personally. And I felt that, you know, maybe there's a potential there for sending off more former politicians into the wilderness.
Yeah, well, no doubt.
Maybe some current ones
I
too.
mean, you get a lot of time to think though. I mean, being serious almost, you know, I mean, what an opportunity for some introspection. I mean, the views look incredible. I'm sure you're distracted with a lot of that, or just trying to keep your legs moving, or trying not to freeze your knackers off in the night. But still, you get a lot of time to dwell on things and you know, meditate and think of what you might do with stuff. I mean, that was, what was it, 4 months, 5 months?
Yeah, 5 months, and I had a lot of close calls, a lot of challenges. I ran into frostbite and other issues, and there's a lot of times I really wanted to quit, but I had so many people from back home supporting me, supporting Big Brothers and Big Sisters, contributing, following along online, and that really helped me. And you know, I'll even admit to you, Corin, on just a personal level, you know, after you're done on the election night and it's a failure in a very public way, it's hard to bounce back from that. And I knew on election night, I knew I could either focus on being bitter or getting better. So I knew I wanted to continue to make a difference, and I wasn't happy to take no for an answer. And just really, really thrilled to see how Calgarians have stepped up in such a big way for such an incredible organization.
Yeah, and it is a good positive bounce. Like for people who haven't run before, don't understand necessarily. I mean, I've run before, but I never ran under illusions that I was going to win. I always did to make a statement. But I actually managed some campaigns where we had a very realistic chance of winning. And when you're that immersed in it, it's personal, it's serious, and when you narrowly lose, or you know, you or even with a wide margin, but you thought you were going to win, it's quite a blow. It takes some recovery. I mean, you know, so that's a good, healthy way. You know, you didn't curl up in bed and you know, watch the world go by. You jumped on something else and got rolling. It's great.
Yeah, and I wasn't ever sure how much of that support for me politically would translate into something completely different. Like, I don't think anybody on their 2022 bingo cards had Jeromy Farkas running from Mexico to Canada.
No.
But I had a lot of people step up in a big way. And even to his credit, former Mayor Nenshi, he did a great video for me, and a lot of funny jokes in there. You should watch it. But he's talking about, well, Farkas, I told you to go take a hike how many times, but I never thought you'd take it literally.
Yeah.
So it's been very, very fun to see how Calgarians have stepped up in such a big way. And now I just got to figure out what else to do with my life.
Well, I wanted to get onto that a bit. I mean, you're here. You know, we got a whole lot of political activity happening. I mean, we know it's in your blood, whether you like it or not. I mean, it's a terrible affliction. I suffer from it myself, though I'm never running for office again. Now I just sit on the sideline and pick at you guys. But have you got any plans? What's going on here?
Well, on September 20th, we're going to be hosting that welcome home party. So really my focus right now is selling tickets to that. I think we still have maybe 24 tickets, so that's selling out fast. And it's bbbscalgary.ca where people can find that. But beyond that, you know, I'm looking for opportunities to still make a difference. And for the last 5 months, I've been really good. I've been off of Twitter. But now that I'm back, it's sort of like it's a drug that you're addicted to, and I'm kind of in relapse. But I think right now, just kind of taking it easy, eating all of the ice cream and enjoying my air conditioning.
Yeah, I mean, there's just those comforts in life you'll certainly learn to appreciate a lot more. I mean, I remember the first time I had you on, because you're still kind of in the desert area and that too, and you were dealing with, I mean, well, again, the extremes. You're getting near frost at night, but you got rattlesnakes to watch out during the day and things like that. And then you hit the high country. I mean, you've got bears to look at, or even concerns, I guess, about other hikers. Actually, there's something I wanted to ask about. I worked on the Texas and Mexico border a lot in the past, oil exploration, but it could be very dangerous down there in the sense of some of the people, unfortunately. I mean, most of them were people just trying to cross and make a better life, and they're running for it. But there's a lot of, you know, cartel activity and drug runners and so on. Was that a concern while you're doing that first south zone down there?
Oh, it was pretty much everything. Like, you'd run into crazy encounters with animals like mountain lions, bears, rattlesnakes, all the above. And then I'd say the people were the best part of the experience for me. Like, I'd run into all sorts of incredible people that I never in my ordinary life would ever have the chance to. And it's about 1 in 10 or 1 in 5 who start in Mexico actually make it to Canada. So by the time you're nearing the end, like, these are people who are battle-worn buddies. Like, they're comrades who you would give everything and anything to see them finish, more so than you want to see yourself finish. So you make some incredible friends for life. But I'll be sharing more stories. You have to hitchhike a lot, which is that is an incredible tour of small town America, having gotten maybe 50 or 60 hitchhike rides. And There's some interesting people that I got to meet, and maybe I'll leave it there.
Yeah, well, and the social opportunities. I mean,
Yeah.
for crabby introverts like myself, for example, I drive Uber. I
Mhm.
like driving it. I always have. I've never, I actually enjoy it. And part of the reason for it is I get a completely unfiltered mix of people in the back.
Oh yeah.
I mean, some of them, they suck. Some of them stink, literally. I mean, in summer weather, there's some, I should be able to charge extra for people for personal hygiene.
Well, that would be the hikers. That would be me for sure. I'd have
Well, you
to
got
be
an
charging
excuse
double.
for when you're in the mountains for a week. At least you're in an open area, so the wind can blow it away.
Yeah.
But I mean, what I mean though is it's nice to get, when we're in politics, when we're at home, when we're in Alberta, we can get into our own bubbles. We only talk to our own social circles. We only talk to our own. And when you get something that's completely random, as you would be, in hiking a trail, I mean, you get every sort of person who's joining you, whether for a day or maybe they're doing a couple of weeks, or whether you're hitchhiking. I just think, likewise, an Uber, I never know who I'm going to get. And there's some very interesting, and they help me think sometimes. People, geez, I never thought of that. And I would never get that idea from somebody here in the newsroom. Not that there's lots of ideas here. But
well, it's interesting how much they say that all politics is local. Like I did this side trip to San Francisco where their big Democrat defund the police district attorney was actually being recalled. And there's that election going on. And there's a part of Oregon and California that's actually trying to separate and go on their own as their own state. And they're frustrated. And they're frustrated with the big cities making the decisions for them. And, it's interesting. History doesn't repeat itself, but it seems like it rhymes. For me, it was just incredible to be able to unplug. And especially after the election, where you're just so busy, you're nonstop, maybe doing 40, 50 events a day, to actually hear nothing, hear silence. That was an incredible experience.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big challenge, but your goal is kind of a lot more simple too. It's just keep that one foot in front of the other, keep going. I mean, it's not nuanced in that sense. It's still challenging. I mean, the psychological aspects. I mean, your writings, sometimes you can see you were seriously questioning yourself at times. And one, I got to admit, you did that on purpose a bit. You started out as if, I'm pulling the pin. I'm out of here. I'm going to be at the airport. I think you were near Sacramento at that time or something. Oh, shit, he gave up. And no, you stuck at it. So,
well, for me, I just wanted to do something I really never could as a politician. I just wanted to be very raw. I wanted to be unfiltered. I guess as a politician, I was relatively unfiltered, but I wanted to actually show people the highs and the lows. And for me, it was an incredible experience because it made me really realize that, life is just it's not just a straight line between successes and successes. There's failures there. And for me, I think I've come back to Calgary now and probably the toughest I've ever been physically and mentally.
Well, it helps humanize you when you're writing your thoughts and things like that too. I mean, people forget politicians are just they're people with thoughts and ideas and doubts and things such as that. I see Linda Gibson saying you should write a book. Are you considering such? I mean, that could be the basis. One of the most interesting books I ever read was a young guy who sailed solo around the world in a little sailboat, and that was just his diary and thoughts all the way through.
I'd want it to be interesting. I would like to write a little bit more about how my experience during the election shaped some of what I was seeing and what I was feeling on the ground. But I'd like it to be more like a how-to manual. I don't want it to be a boring memoir of somebody who's been off on some adventure. I see the best potential in terms of how I can challenge people to get up and try to do the same. Like, you don't just wake up one day and decide you're going to run 5,000 kilometers across the continent. Like, I would want to challenge, especially young folks, to think bigger and to want to take on a challenge like that or even bigger. So it would be more of an invitation. It would be more of a challenge to people to, for me, I never thought that when I started that I would be able to finish, but I was able to learn along the way. And I think that speaks to a lot about life as well as the work that Big Brothers and Big Sisters do.
So it sounds like you have thought about writing a book already. You got a little bit in mind on if you were to write one, that's kind of where you would go with it.
Well, I got probably thousands of pages already up on Facebook where I go on a daily basis, the people that I met, the adventures that I've had, and really excited to share some more of the video and the pictures on our movie night on September 20th, where I'll actually be able to go into the details and see, well, this is the mountain that I've climbed. And it's astonishing to think about how far I've come. And I can't help but think, though, a lot of the people that I met along the way who were not as fortunate enough to me, had injuries and for one reason or another were unable to finish. So I think a lot about the people that I met.
Yeah. So how are you settling in? Like, I remember my oil field time. So I go for 60, 80 days away. Actually, for my first couple of weeks back to Calgary, Jane would note it. I'm a little squirrely for the first little while. It takes a bit to get used to the city again, to, other people, traffic, routines. Is it been a bit of a culture shock coming back right now?
Well, I've been eating all of the food. When I got back, I went to Costco, and I think I'm going to have to go to Costco again in terms of all the cookies and the chips and the stuff that you really, really crave when you're out there. Pizza too, and you kind of get tired eating all the same stuff because when you're out there, of course, you have to carry everything on your own back. You have to wear basically your tent, your shelter, your food, your cooking supplies and stuff like that. So I try to keep everything really ultra light. But yeah, I've been eating a lot, and hopefully, well, there's the benefit though that I think I'm the only one who's been away as long as I have, and I actually came back with my jeans fitting better than when I left.
Well, there you go. Yeah, most people come back from vacation. Like me, I go up a bra size, but I go to sit around. So with all of that, though, I mean, basically, are you considering other types of runs then down the road? I mean, there's a East Coast trail that goes through the Appalachians and things such as that looks pretty fascinating. Not quite that long connected stretch like the West one, but
yeah, I have a lot of ideas kicking around. I know I want to be involved in youth mentorship. Politics is very much my passion. I was able to kick my Twitter habit while I was gone, but now I just really, really care about what's happening in our community. And I know that for better or for worse, I built a certain kind of platform, and people, I was just so fortunate that people were willing to actually take a look at Big Brothers and Big Sisters. So I'm thinking about ways that I can make a positive difference that way. But, I haven't really thought too much, and there's not a lot of mental bandwidth when you're out there, but just so grateful for the fact that people have stepped up in such a big way. And I'd say for all the kind of adversity I experienced, there's a lot of kids here in Calgary who are experiencing absolutely worse every single day of their life. So when I think about ways that I can contribute and to be able to help them write a new chapter, or rather a new ending to their story, that makes all the difference to me.
Well, that's it. I mean, it's a very important developmental time. I mean, if we get into the larger conversations, these are things I write my columns on, things like that, though. I mean, when you're talking about chronic criminals or people who are in trouble or, rehabilitating, I mean, the best time to get somebody back on track is in that first 20 years of their life, not once they're 30 and already in grave trouble. And things like Big Brothers, Big Sisters, that helps catch kids before they get on the wrong track quite often.
Well, I would just challenge the typical conservatives to donate, to contribute. If you're not wanting government to do things like this, I think it's our responsibility to step up and support those organizations, because organizations like Big Brothers and Big Sisters, they have a strong stated goal to be less reliant on government programs and government grants. And that's going to require that grassroots support to be able to step up and allow them to roll out these programs.
Yeah, likewise, there's a lot of volunteer opportunities too, of course. I mean, there's that mentorship that's involved. So, I mean, if somebody has the time and is good with that sort of thing, they can sign up and get involved directly with Big Brothers and Sisters as well. I mean, they need those people, right?
Yeah, and there's many, many different ways that you can give. And I think that the fact that we've been able to use that platform and showcase a lot of the work that BBBS is doing, I think that's an incredible success. And we're going to be pushing as hard as we can over the next, I think, 2 weeks or so to be able to smash through that final $125,000 goal.
Mm-hmm. So just a bit back to the hiking. So you're talking about carrying your food, and I know you got to worry, stuff that's nutritional and light. But
yes.
I mean, so you had quite an organizational thing too, though. Like you had mail drops or you had food set ahead of you, didn't you? A response like that? Or?
Yeah. So I was on my own, and there wasn't any kind of support crew or van or anything like that following me. And whenever I was in a big enough place, like say Palm Springs, I'd go to the Trader Joe's or the Costco or the Walmart, and I'd take these boxes. I'd go to the post office and say, well, all right, I'm going to send this package with granola bars out to this corner store in Washington State, and then I'm going to hope that it's still there when when I roll out the dusty
surprise
trail.
If you're looking forward to it, it's not there.
Yeah, so there's a lot of logistics, and that was probably the most challenging. That sometimes you could be walking or running, say, 100 or 200 miles without any water in between there. So can you imagine carrying enough water to last you for a week or 2 weeks? Like that is heavy. And every step of the way, though, there's these trail angels who step up, and they're members of the local community that will arrange rides. They'll maintain water caches and stuff like that. And it was really I thought the trail was going to be the dirt or the mountains or the sand or the deserts, but it was so obviously the people. And it's been incredible experience, and I've definitely come back and feeling a lot more mellow, especially after the election.
So maybe outside of that, outside of the Big Brothers, and if somebody's of a hiking mind or is interested in that trail, like where do you find, what's it called again? It's the Pacific Coast Trail?
Yeah, so it's the Pacific Crest Trail. I'm
Pacific
told
Crest,
that there's
okay.
this movie Wild with Reese Witherspoon that showcases it, but I've not actually seen the movie.
Okay.
But I would definitely encourage people to take a look. And there's many people I met. I think the youngest who was doing it was 5 years old, and I think the oldest was 78 that I personally met. And,
Yeah.
there's some people who do a different section every single year, but for those who actually start in March or April and make it to the end, it's only about 1 in 5 who are able to finish. And for me, I was really lucky. A lot of things had to go right for me to be able to make it back home in decent shape.
Well, and one badly twisted ankle, or there's a number of things that could happen that stop it. I mean, even if you have the best of intention, and so I mean, you'd also got nailed with COVID while you were there.
I know. But, I think I got that in San Francisco. It's like the most ridiculous thing to get COVID when you're completely alone for many days at a time.
So you get monkeypox. So, but I mean, COVID. I mean, if that's one thing I've heard from everybody who's gotten it, actually, of all the things it does, those really drains the energy out of you. So I mean, of all the things to get hit with when you've got to hike miles and miles every day, it was just an unfortunate thing to lay you up with.
Yeah, my target was about a marathon every day, so I'd be aiming for about 45 kilometers every day. Toward the end, I was able to dial that up to about 70, 80 kilometers. I was able to manage, but if you're running into any sort of physical issues, injuries, stuff like that, that really makes it tough. But it also helped open my eyes to really what's possible for me personally. But I've met so many others with other physical challenges, disabilities who made a point to complete the trail that I have incredible, mad respect for them being able to finish.
So with safety issues, though, I mean, some of those areas, you don't have anything for cell coverage. I mean, what sort of plans did you have in case there was something untoward happen? You have to have at least a plan in mind.
Yeah, I had health insurance for Canadian travelers. I had a InReach device, which is a satellite communicator, so at least I could send messages back home. And then otherwise, I had a lot of these actually like paper maps, which a lot of people made fun of me at the start because with your watches, smart watches, your cell phone, your GPS, like nobody uses paper maps anymore. But we were in a pretty remote place in the Sierra Nevada where the snow was just coming down. And it was so cold that all the electronic devices just failed. So a lot of people were just looking around, but I actually knew how to get us back to a shelter and back on the trail using my paper maps. And then from there, people didn't call me Jeromy, they just called me Pathfinder.
Well, there's something to be said for the tried and true. I mean, GPS is fantastic. I mean, the things we've got
when it
now,
works, yeah.
It frustrates me. I mean, as a starting rodman way back in the day, and I moved up to being a junior surveyor, and I had to learn the formulas. They wouldn't even let me touch a transit until I'd spent 2.5 years.
You know all of that stuff and its limitations.
And then GPS came along, and now somebody with a phone can get a position as accurate in elevation as what it would take me, hours or a day or two to determine in an isolated area. I mean, it's great developments, but it's nice to have the fallback and know how to read a map anyways.
Yeah, even by satellite, my communicator, I could send messages with only about a 30-second delay. So anywhere in the world, which is just astonishing. But, with all the tips and the tricks and the fancy equipment, it doesn't replace you actually having to walk those miles or run those miles. So there's some really terrible conditions we went through. And still, though, like it was very good for me to be just out of that political situation and to be able to have the time to reflect. And as a politician for the last 4 or 5 years, I never really heard silence in the way that I did out on some of these mountaintops.
So, I mean, I'll twist you back to that a little bit, though. You've been back for a little while, as you said. You've dived back into Twitter, not getting, in my way of calling people pricks and getting right on to things, but you're catching up on the issues. You're watching things. You're still politically involved. I mean, what are your thoughts on our picture today? We got a lot going on. We've got a provincial race happening. We got a federal race happening. Well, our municipal where it used to be, that's going to be stuck for 3 more years. So we'll see what happens there.
Well, my message is actually the same as I left with on election night. I said I was going to support our mayor and our council and at least give them some time to be able to come into their own. And I know that to her credit, Mayor Gondek has actually sent me very supportive messages and stuff, which how cool is that? Like you're out in the middle of nowhere and your mayor back home is following what you're doing.
Yeah.
I'm really grateful for that. And I think as far as just the politics, I've promised big brothers and big sisters when I'm in this kind of role and not exactly a spokesman, but kind of a brand ambassador. I'm not going to be diving too deep into that political stuff, but for me, like when I was out there, sometimes I really felt like I was definitely itching to get involved, because if you don't get yourself involved, then all these decisions are made without you. And no sense in complaining if you didn't try to fix it.
No, and fair enough. I mean, when you're raising funds for something like that too, it's good to have that cross-party participation. As I kind of said earlier, I mean, you used to also drive Nancy right out of his mind. I used to quite enjoy it. But hey, you came together when it came. There's no doubt he's got a social media reach, and when he put that video, that got reached out to a lot of people that wouldn't normally have paid attention to you, and it helps bring those funds into the cause, which was the whole goal of the run in the end of everything. I mean, you got plenty of time to fight with Nancy and Gondek. I was hoping to get you to do some of it today, but I understand why you can't at this point. You still got, before we close out then, just to remind everybody, that event that's coming up at the Canyon Meadows Theatre.
Yeah, it's September 20th at Canyon Meadows Theatre. The more details are online at bbbscalgary.ca, as well as ways to be able to contribute. And again, they're such a fantastic organization, an incredible caliber volunteer who is willing to step up and be such a shaping and formative influence for a long period of time in the lives of some of these kids. And myself, growing up in East Calgary and seeing the impact of programming like that really means a lot to me, that Calgarians would step up and support them, but also to give me a second chance, because on an election night, when you have a very public failure, sometimes it just feels like the world, it's the worst thing that could have ever happened to you.
But you're using the wrong term for it. Failure. You didn't win. It's okay. Lots of people don't, I mean, it takes a few goes.
Or at least
you win
the first
some,
time.
you lose some.
Not the first try.
Yeah. So failure it's just a step. That's all.
Well, I came around to really love this idea of failure, because it's only truly a failure if you don't get back up on your feet and if you don't learn from it.
Well, there you go.
So I had a lot of mistakes and a lot of opportunities for learning out on the trail, and I think it's really sharpened my focus. And trust me, I've been thinking a lot about that past election, my own time in politics, and how if I did it again, I'd want to be better.
So we can get that out at least. You ain't done.
No, it's not the last time you've heard from me.
Done yet. Okay, well, right on. I appreciate you coming in to talk to us today. I really appreciate what you did on the run. It's great stuff. I mean, that's the conservative way of doing things. They aren't begging government to take care of the problem. We're encouraging each other to take care of it as a community.
Absolutely.
And it was a really unique and neat way to do it. And, just to encourage everybody else, Jeromy Farkas, look it up on Facebook. You can really see all of the great postings and pictures you took and things like that. So
yeah, thank you again, Corey.
And yeah, I'm sure we'll see you again soon. And then I'll grind you on some politics stuff when you're done with your brand ambassador.
And keep turning those screws.
Oh yeah, thanks. My job's more angry than yours, but I enjoy it.
I'm very mellow now. I couldn't sit in your chair.
Right on. All right, thanks again.
Yeah, thank you, sir. Yeah, cheers.
All right. So there you go, guys. Jeromy Farkas back from the wilds and the hiking, and again, it was really cool to watch. I was mixed between envy and also knowing that I wouldn't have the wherewithal to stick to it throughout all those extremes. I mean, the elevation differences he hit, the going from freezing to overheating, and all in the name of a really good cause. That's what's really important about it, and spinning things. I mean, to get into that political aspect, and that's what Jeromy talked about a little, is this is how we take care of things. I mean, people talk a lot about that. When we got a lot of social ills, we get a lot of problems, we got things happening, and a lot of it's due to broken families, right? We get a lot of kids who are kind of unguided, they're on their own, they're in development, and they don't have a solid family unit to help them with that, and they can drift off the rails. Big Brothers and Sisters has been a really good organization to help kids with things like that. Or I like seeing preventative things. I really do. And I like seeing community-based. Just like if people remember, I had a guest on, a fella named Gar, and he works in Eastern Calgary because he gets bicycles for a lot of the kids, a lot of new Canadian kids and ones, so that they can get involved in healthy activities and things like that, rather than falling through the cracks and getting into gangs and in problems like that. Like, that's so much more effective than being, punitive after the fact once somebody's gotten in trouble. So yeah, it was good to get Jeromy in. And as he said, there's going to be more to come from him. And I really like how he was looking at it, though, right? He's for a young man, he's made quite a bit of progress in politics and things like that as it is. He's still got aspirations, and 5 months of hiking by yourself and with others and so on, and interacting with other people. I imagine he's got, there's some awesome pictures as you can see, like that sun. I don't know if that would be a sunset or a sunrise in that case, but great shot. And I'm sure he's got a much different outlook on how things are going to go going forward for himself there. And what's that? Avoid heating the afternoon. Yeah, well, Farkas is going to be dealing with a lot of things to readjust. As I said, he's only been back a little bit. And paradoxically saying it strikes me that the experience took the politics out of him. And I appreciate the commitment to BBS. I think actually kind of what I gathered, I don't think the politics are out of him, but he's fair enough. Like I said, he's keeping it to himself for now. I mean, it's not over. The final thing will be at the Canyon Meadows Theater on September 20th. You don't want to start dividing people. There's people on left, right, and center, at least, who support Big Brothers and Sisters. So, let's get them all involved in helping out with this until the end. I got a feeling, I'm just guessing, that Jeremy's going to be reappearing and being as political as ever in the future pretty soon. He's got way too much ambition to give up. Cheryl Dawn saying, did they catch the second serial stabber in Saskatchewan yet? I don't think so. I don't. And, that is so maddening. I mean, we're talking farther back, proactive things like, getting kids before they get in trouble. I was reading the things with that guy who's accused. I don't even like using the names of these killers. I don't want to give them any more attention than they've gotten. I can't name all the victims because there's so many. And I looked at it. That was released. It's on the Western Standard site, all the names of the poor people who've died so far. And I believe there's still 3 in critical condition in hospital right now. And I also read some of the writings about, so this guy was a nasty character, this murderer. He had 59 convictions already, and this isn't an old guy, right? 59. What does it take to put these guys away for life? We got to protect society first. On my own YouTube channel, if you look up Corey Morgan, I got my own where I just do little rants and things like that. I just did the other day, and this was prior to this stabbing spree from this guy, and that was over the Nikita Barron. If you remember that name, she was murdered in a double shooting down in South Calgary. It turns out, of course, the guy who shot her, he had been arrested for murder a year and some ago and let out. And that covered, there's a story I wrote in the Western Standard too, because prior to that, there had been 3. Now there's 4. 4 women in Alberta in 1 year have been murdered by 4 different men, all of whom had prior violent records. We've got to stop letting these murderers out. And the parole board kept talking about how that other gentleman, either way, the one who's on the loose, who's been stabbing people, he had a rough childhood and he's got PTSD and he was on the reserve and there's intergenerational residential school damage. And look, guys, I'm sure it's a tragic story. Sure it is. But I don't care. I don't give a shit. It doesn't make them any less dangerous. That's what we got to look at when you're looking at a parole board, not what got him there. You got to wonder what he's going to do tomorrow. We want to work on things definitely to fix it so we have less people so damaged that they would go out and kill people like that. But in the meantime, when we've seen a guy with 59 convictions of a bunch of violent crimes, you got to stop letting them out. I think with these guys who let them out on parole, the guys who do this sort of thing, you know what we should do? They should billet the criminals with them then. You think they're safe? Have them in your household. Have them watch your kids. Have them babysit for a little while. See how that works out. Or at least maybe even hold them criminally responsible for when they let these animals out and they kill people. I mean, really? What do you think you're doing? If I went out with a dog that had been abused and nasty, you see, there's something that's, I don't want to call every person a dog, but let's talk about a dog is faultless, right? I love dogs. I love the rescues. I take part in them, things like that. But if it's been terribly abused, a dog can become dangerous. It can become vicious. Unfortunately, it's nasty asshole people who make them that way. But if I've got a dog that's that dangerous, if we're fostering one that's that dangerous, or if I was some sick devil who harmed one like that, and then let the dog loose in a playground, is it the dog's fault for all the children who are about to get bitten, or mine for letting the dog loose in the first place when I knew the dog was vicious? Yeah. I mean, the dog needs to be controlled. There's no getting around that. But the person who let the damn dog out in the first place should be held accountable too. And that's not happening. As Arthur Green there, our great Newfie writer from the north, is pointing out, the catch and release justice system in Canada is appalling. It is. And, if people remember from in Alberta, some of the news guys like Dave and that would definitely know it. If you remember a name with a guy named Daniel Gingras, he was in Edmonton in the jail. This is in 89, I think it was, or 87, I'm not sure. He was in for murder. And they thought, you know what, he's been pretty good the last few months. Let's let him go to West Edmonton Mall for his birthday. Yeah, they really did. The guy had Born to Kill tattooed down his arm. He's in for murder. They let him into West Edmonton Mall for his birthday. By the time they caught him, because guess what? He ran off, overpowered his unarmed escort, ran off. He killed 2 more people while he was loose. The people who let him out should have been charged with murder just as much as him. How could you possibly see a savage animal piece of crap like Daniel Gingras and let him out among the public? And 2 innocent people died during the time. And that's how vicious and that's how nasty this guy was. That's how broken this man is. You can't reform a person like that. The second he was out, he was killing more people. And we have a lot of them. And we keep letting them out. And it's got to stop. All right, let's talk about something a little lighter. There's a video, and if people remember Derek Smith, he wrote how the Prime Minister Stole Freedom. If you remember that, it was written in a Dr. Seuss sort of style book. It was a bestseller. It went really good. I had him on the show. He's going to be writing another book, but he worked with somebody, and they put together a video where, I don't know exactly how they do it, but I think they call it that deep fake in a sense, where you can take a public figure and really make it appear that they are reading and saying things. Well, they've got, we'll play a portion of that video of Justin Trudeau reading from how the Prime Minister stole Canada, and they'll talk a little bit about that.
Hi, this is Justin Trudeau. The great Canadian book that I'd like to share with you today is one that marked me very recently. It was a book that I got excited about reading through. It's called How the Prime Minister Stole Freedom by Derek Smith. Here was a book that I could relate to on just about any level.
So, I mean, that goes on for 9 minutes. I shared that video on my Twitter and some other things. The whole book gets read page by page, and it really, really does appear. I mean, the voice, you can see a little bit of, the mouth not matching the words perfectly, but for the most part, it really was a good job. And it's hilarious, as others who have seen it so far, in Justin Trudeau reading what was such a funny yet cutting parody book of what his actions were last winter. I think I said it wrong before. I said, "Oh, Justin Trudeau stole Canada," or whatever. It's How the Prime Minister Stole Freedom. And it's very clever. As I said, I had the author, Derek Smith, on before, and I messaged with Derek just the other day. He said he's got another book coming out in November, so we'll definitely talk to him at that time and see what he's up to. But that video, it's hilarious, and it's worth sharing, as Wendy's saying, and June. It's very funny to watch that being read, but it also scares me. I mean, look how close to realism. I mean, we know Justin Trudeau didn't really sit and read that book. I mean, he can't read. So, there weren't even pop-ups. But all the same, it was made. But it was made realistically, and I do worry, some people have talked about that before. How far can that go? You could really get a person in a whole lot of trouble. We know how unforgiving the social media and internet world is. If something goes out, even if it's proven to be wrong and untrue. What if somebody took a video of a public figure, again, and did something far less, than just being funny with a book reading, and had them, say a bunch of nasty neo-Nazi things or just other abhorrent stuff, and it would look so believable and go viral that even once it's corrected, you know how that works. People don't remember the correction. That's a very potentially dangerous software. And I'm not one of those saying it's time to call in and get the state to intervene and control more software or social media or anything. It's just saying that, boy, the technology is really getting incredibly advanced in ways that can be used for good and for laughing and parody, like Derek Smith or the person he got involved with it did. But unfortunately, some people can be really nasty with it. Brenda Heiling saying, link, I need that video. Yeah, I put it on Twitter on my account at Corey B. Morgan. It's on Facebook and going around. If you search, I know Derek Smith is pretty Google proof. If you're not on either of those platforms, if you search around enough, you should be able to find it. And it's going pretty viral, so you'll see it shared in other areas. And some other folks saying they got theirs too. And yeah, it was funny. I saw Derek Smith's book, that very book, just yesterday. I went actually to a wholesale firearm center. I got a tour there. Jane and I went and we toured it, and actually we picked up a firearm for ourselves since we've got, there's the link. Nico is always on the ball. So there's the link, guys, if you want to see that video. Wait till my show's over before you click on that, though. And yeah, you know, because Justin Trudeau has been the best handgun salesman in all of Canada. Everybody who was thinking about getting one decided lately to rush out and get one. It took some months and everything. But it was funny. The first thing greeting in the lobby of this wholesale facility we went to was that book sitting up there, How the Prime Minister Stole Freedom. I found that quite funny. It is a good, funny book. And you know, I like seeing humor injected into serious issues, because I mean, it's very serious. It was a very serious issue with Justin Trudeau imposing the Emergencies Act upon Canadians, stepping on rights like that to stop the protests like that, or try to. But this gives a way to read through it, sort of laugh about it, but to also take a poke at the Prime Minister and deal with those sorts of things. And we're in for some tough times yet. You know, so I mean, this is just looking at some of the news, another 0.75% increase to the overnight prime rate from the Bank of Canada. Let's twist off into a little more politics again. And this isn't the only way. This is the only way the government knows how to try and control inflation. We dealt with this in the 80s too, when they cranked up interest. Yes, if you raise interest rates enough, inflation goes down. But the reason for that is because you've chilled the economy. You've hurt the economy. You've beat the economy down. And if you use that blunt instrument too much, if you use it too tough, then you can push us into a deep recession. So we got to watch it with these increases. They sound small because this is how the Bank of Canada is doing it. They're doing it incrementally. So that was another 0.75%. But that brings us to now, in the last few months, it's raised to 3.25%. It was the overnight prime rate. And that makes Canada one of the highest in the world for that. And those numbers, again, while they sound small, that has a huge impact on the economy. That chills capital investment. Large companies, large outfits that are thinking of doing advances or large developments, things like that, or projects, they start to rethink it, because those minor sounding percentages add up to tens of millions, hundreds of millions, or even billions of dollars sometimes. So then they start reevaluating whether they're going to do it. And if they don't do these projects, then people end up unemployed and we go into recession. So, you know, we are not out of the woods yet, not even close. And that's what really worries me a lot. People thinking it's over and forgetting, look at the debt we took on, and look at the interest rates. The other thing to keep in mind, whenever they raise that interest, that's more money that's going to go to servicing that debt. You know, there's so much economic illiteracy out there. It's agonizing to watch with people. They just think there's a magical money bin out there that's going to pay for all our programs. And if government would just spend enough on everything, we'd all be rich. It doesn't work that way. But it does seem to work in winning elections. And it works in Europe. Like the intensity of stupidity in Europe. You know, look at some of the recent news with this thing. We're going to cap the price of the natural gas coming out of Russia. They're going to freeze your balls off, you guys. You can't tell Russia how much they can sell the gas to. You got dependent on them. You put your head in that noose with them. And yes, we got Prime Minister Ding Dong in Canada, who even when Germany asked, could Canada supply us with some natural gas? Well, I don't think there's a business case for it. I mean, this is a guy, Justin has never even run a lemonade stand in his life. He doesn't know anything about business opportunities. We could have helped Europe. But Europe is still in denial too. And the progressives hate talking about it, but a very large part of the reason that Germany is so screwed right now is that they heavily invested into green technology, which doesn't work. It's supplemental at best. It's a novelty. It's like electric cars are right now. Oh, you got your windmills, you got some tidal power, you've got some geothermal heat, you got some solar. Yeah. They're all little luxuries. The reality is you need a base of coal, natural gas, and nuclear to keep it rolling. And these idiots shut down their coal, which they've refired up. They're shutting down their nuclear, which is even dumber, but they're refiring, or at least putting that off as well. And even now, though, they still don't seem to have realized what sort of trouble they're in. They're thinking they can artificially cap what the price is of what's coming from another country. Look, Russia has been smarter than Canada with these things. You want to know how? Because they got more than one customer. Our biggest problem is our only export customer, our only one for our oil and gas in reality is the United States. It's the only one for gas, and it's 99% of our exports or whatever with oil. When you can, and that's part of why we sell everything at a discount. When you've only got one customer, they can sort of dictate to you. When Russia now can sell to India and China and all sorts of places that are more than happy to buy their energy products. So Germany and Europe and that can't make any demands. They don't have any terms of things. Canada's the other way around. If we could get our bloody stuff to port, if we could get to Tidewater with our energy products, we could have a whole bunch of customers out there. If we had LNG plants, multiple terminals, multiple of them on each coast, and the Americans say, we want to buy your gas at a discount, we say, go to hell. No, China will buy it for this much, or Philippines will, or whatever. We got all sorts of customers. You're going to pay world price, guys. But we've got a prime minister who's stunting all that. The stupidity of all of this altogether is just compounding. And some of us are kind of laughing at how Germany's going to freeze this winter, but at the same time, it is kind of dark. People are going to suffer very badly over this. And I don't know how much the suffering has to get to before the reality check comes in. It's just beyond reason, Something else that we got, and this is something I'm looking forward to, is a news weenie, and also hopefully to see something happening. Though I believe it's September 10th. The inquiry is going to begin into the use of the Emergencies Act by the federal government last February on the bouncy castles and hot tubs, because that was the biggest crisis since terrorists in Quebec were murdering politicians and foreign workers. So I'm really getting rumblings, I hope, and I think, and they're going to be televising it, I guess, or they're going to be live streaming it so you can see it, that they dig deep. I mean, there's a lot of all of that has already been coming out, showing that the government had no justification in imposing that act, no justification in bringing in a form of martial law upon the citizens to deal with that emergency. And the people who crafted the Emergencies Act, oh, wait a second, Sylvia is saying it's been pushed back to October. Okay, sorry, I appreciate the correction, Sylvia. But they have a hard, okay, and Gandhi correcting me as well. It's been pushed to October. I'm out of touch with that one. I'm sorry, I missed it. Damn. I was really looking forward to that going. They can't push it too long. And actually, that tells me another thing. That's government's terrified then. What's your excuse, you guys? But they have to have that. They have to. And it has to be released by that end. So they can kick that can down the road, but it's going to get them. So either way, well, that sucks. I was looking forward to watching that next week. That's why I like this live show. Hey, when I'm off the rails, you guys will let me know. But I do hope that judge, and I know some people say he's liberal appointed and things like that, perhaps. But he sounds like he's really going through it. And there's been some liberal appointed judges who still take their jobs very seriously and really want to get to the bottom of things. So I hope that's the case in this, because we really had an unprecedented action by the government against us last February, and they should not get away with it. Cheryl Dunn saying justice will call an election before the inquiry to avoid it. Well, the inquiry still has to go. It has to. As I was saying, the people who made that legislation, who changed the War Measures Act into the Emergencies Act, changed a few things. And what they did was said, though they understood how serious it is, the government has no choice. No choice. If you're going to impose it, you have to have an inquiry as to why you did it within a year. So yeah, they can kick it down the road and they can mess with procedure and they can do a lot of things, but it's going to happen one way or another. The modelers of that policy were smarter than the Prime Minister is about it, and they understood how serious it was. So, okay, but it's good to find out from you guys. And others saying the judge had a medical procedure, or Linda saying the judge is sick and that's why it's being pushed back. Okay, it's unfortunate. Well, let's get her rolling. Let's get on with it. So, and another fellow there asking, or somebody, AB Free asking when I'll be on again. Yeah, it's going to be next Wednesday at noon. We're going to do this once a week, every Wednesday at noon. I'm not sure who my guest will be next week yet. And it's going to be once a week. It's going to be a good show. It's going to be lots of ranting, lots of covering things. It's going to be live. We will have our discussions. So, hey, spread the word. I'm back. You couldn't get rid of me that easily. I'm not going to be doing the daily thing. I'm going to be doing the pipeline. That's going to be airing tonight. There's going to be a special this weekend covering the Conservative Party of Canada's leadership race when that gets released. So watch the Western Standard channels for that. And yes, and I'm untied in many ways. Thanks. Good to see you all, guys. And I'll see you all again 1 week from today.